Once upon a time, in a beautiful forest, lived a tortoise and a hare. One day, the hare was feeling very confident and was racing back and forth across the field. Look at me, he said, screaming at the top of his lungs. All the other forest animals nodded, and no one disagreed. Yes, you are the fastest in the forest, Mr. Hare. So finally, the hare, feeling very confident, decided to race someone. He looked at all the other animals and said, I bet none of you are faster than me. Well, all of the animals didn't want to say anything and they kept quiet, when all of a sudden, out of the back, the little tortoise poked his head out of his shell and said, I'll race you. Now Mr. Hare started laughing. So did all the other forest animals. Mr. Raccoon looked over at Mr. Tortoise and said, I don't think that's a good idea. He's very fast and you're very slow. The tortoise thought it over and said, no, I want to race him. So the hare said, fine, tomorrow we're going to race from this end to the field to the other. And whoever makes it there first, that's the winner. So the tortoise agreed. So while he was warming up, he began stretching, getting all of his little body parts ready to run this big race. Because as you know, the tortoise is never moving anywhere fast. So while the hare did his usual, sprinting back and forth 10 or 15 times across the field, preparing for his race, he laughed and told one of the other forest animals, has he even started running yet? The other animals, they didn't think that the tortoise had anything in him to win the race. So finally, race day came. The tortoise, feeling a little uneasy but confident, got set up, and so did the hare. So once the raccoon yelled, go, they took off. The hare within seconds made it halfway to the end of the race. The tortoise was barely across the starting line. The hare was able to run all the way back to the tortoise and asked him, have you even started running yet? The tortoise kind of laughed and said, why, yes, I have. So the hare decided to sprint forward and made it about halfway. He found a really nice tree that was shady and he laid down. Well, the hare decided, I've got time, I'm going to take a nap. And when I hear the tortoise come by, I'm going to wake up and run all the way to the finish and beat him. So that's what he did. He chewed on some grass and went to sleep. Well, the tortoise, moving as slow as he did, going, finally caught up to the hare, and he noticed he was asleep. So very quietly, he crept past the rabbit and continued going. The tortoise was about 10-15 feet from the finish line when all the other forest animals couldn't believe their eyes. The raccoon looked at the fox and said, oh my God, the tortoise might win. So as all the forest animals began to scream and cheer and shout for the tortoise, the hare awoke, and to his disbelief, he saw the tortoise within feet of the finish line. So the hare sprang up from his nap and started to run towards the finish line. But just before the hare could cross, the tortoise stuck his neck out over the finish line and it was over. The tortoise had beat the hare.